Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to look at how to do a really cool After Effects transition completely done in post. In this transition there are no actual camera moves going on during the shoot. This was just a static still shot of Casey here sitting on a couch, and this whole motion going on with the camera was completely done in post. And let's just take a look at this with the audio and everything just so we can take a look at what we're going to be creating here.
Now, while interviews are definitely the driving force behind testimonial videos, there is another crucial part that we call B-roll. If you ever heard filmmakers talk, you may hear the term B-roll tossed around.
And again, that was completely done in post. This particular type of transition where you're going from one scene, panning over, pausing for a moment, to a different scene that looks like it's continuous from the previous scene, like in the same location. This particular effect is not going to be as widely applicable to different scenarios, but it looks cool, and if you want to have a little title intro in the same fashion, or I'm sure you can think of other creative ways to apply this, but note number one is it's not going to be completely applicable in every situation. Note number two is it also requires a unique setup. This kind of requires, in a way, a simple background. If I was outside with buildings and trees behind me and I had to create a new scene from that with a background that looks seamless, that's not really going to work as well because it's kind of hard to recreate that. But if you just have, a blank wall behind you and just some simple X's on the walls like in the clip, that's going to be a lot easier to recreate and post and have it look real, right? And so in this video, we're going to recreate that exact same transition with that same footage, and we're just going to go through all the steps, and I'll show you everything that's involved in getting that done. Okay, without further ado, we'll get started here. I kind of have this screen here. This is just more for, to make the shot here look nice. You don't actually look at this. We'll cut away to my screen here. And here we are. Here we are in After Effects. I am, for the sake of speed, just going to be using this little plugin here called Motion 2. Basically, only going to be using it to add easing to my keyframes instead of having to use the graph editor. So just a little heads up there. I actually did a review of this plugin in a separate video on Bytesite's YouTube channel. I'll put that in the description below. This is a very useful plugin. Here's our project. We're just going to stay organized here and create a couple folders for our assets and our comps. And we only have two assets here, so we have the intro here.
Last week we mentioned that testimonial videos are a great place to start.
You can see this is in the original edit. It just cuts to the next shot. There's no camera motion.
All B-roll. If you ever heard filmmakers talk, you may hear the term B-roll tossed around.
And you'll see I purposely left some lead room there for the pause to allow some time for that motion to happen.
Another crucial part that we call B-roll. If you ever heard filmmakers talk, you may hear the term B-roll tossed around.
Okay, awesome.
And we gave you a couple.
So that's the clip that we're going to be using. And then we also just have the Bytesite logo here. And we don't necessarily need this, but that was in the original video, so we'll include that just in case we want to use it. Okay, here's our intro. We'll just drag that into the composition icon to create a comp out of it. Here it is. So first thing we're going to do is basically add the motion of this guy moving down completely out of the screen. So I'm going to go to the position. I'm first going to, you don't need to do this, but I am going to position the anchor point at the top of the layer, and that way I can just move ahead in time, and if I put in 1080 here, I am 100% certain it is completely exactly at the bottom of the panel there, just out of view. Cool. Okay, and we'll just continue to stay organized and move our comp into the comps folder there. Okay, so let's check out this motion. Of course, this does not look great. We're gonna have to add some motion here, so I'm just gonna ease that out. And you can see what that's doing in the graph editor. It's basically starting fast, well, very slow to very fast, and then really slowing out in the end there. So we'll see what that looks like. Okay, and it's happening too soon. We have to time this right, of course. So we're gonna look at where. Probably want it to happen maybe right there.
Part that we call B-roll.
Sweet, that looks pretty good. And I'm also going to just trim my work area to there.
Part that we call B-roll.
All right, so we have our initial motion there. Next step is filling in this black space. So we need the wall to continue up. So we're just gonna create a solid here, just so it's not black. I'm just gonna make it like, you know, red. And we will move to our second keyframe here, and we will position our anchor point for this red solid at the bottom of the solid. And then we will simply parent it. We'll make sure the current time indicator is here at the second keyframe, and we will then parent it to our video layer. And now when we go back in time, you'll see that red layer is following our video layer. And the red layer just doesn't need to start until here. We'll just keep everything looking clean. You'll see it's pretty much seamless here. They match up exactly. There's no overlay going on. Like I could move the red layer down like that, and we will be doing that, but not quite yet. First, we're gonna add the gradient to the red layer. And so we'll go into our effects and presets and type in gradient ramp. By the way, normally I'd be using Effects Console, but I realize that's another plugin. I don't wanna use too many plugins here, so I'll just do it the normal way. There's a free plugin that makes adding effects quite a bit quicker, so I definitely recommend that. You can get it from Video Copilot. Oh, there we go, gradient ramp. And we'll put that onto our solid here. Awesome. It's already looking slightly better. It's looking, at least there's a gradient going on. Okay, so pretty much we're just trying to make this transition here look seamless. So our gradient, you'll see, is basically controlled by these two colors that you can move around. So we're gonna position this one right here and this one right here. And you know, we may as well just make the Y values exact so they're exactly horizontal to each other. And we'll make the white color match up to there and the black color match up to there. You can see that's already looking quite a bit closer, but of course not seamless at all. More work to do here for sure. So first thing we're gonna do is we're going to overlay our solid. We're just gonna go down halfway about here. We are going to overlay our solid, move it down a bit, and we're gonna basically add a mask and feather it out. So we'll just do Command-Shift-N for a new mask. You can see there's now a yellow mask there. Okay, so, and then we're gonna have to feather out our mask. We'll put it to 80, and then our expansion to maybe minus 70. And we will also increase, you'll see we have to now increase the scale of our solid here. I'll just zoom out. We'll just put it up to 200. So now it's filling out the sides. Zoom back in, reposition it until that seam is completely gone. There we go, completely gone. Maybe a tiny bit more. Okay, awesome, good stuff. Oh, and we actually need this to start at the beginning because it's just gonna pop in too soon. So as you can see, it's overlaying the top here. We'll start that from the beginning. And you know, this actually looks pretty dark. So here's part of the issue is my handles went way out as the mask, as I expanded the scale of the solid. I didn't catch that there. So we'll put those handles back in. Okay, cool, looking pretty good. The wall doesn't look perfect here. So what we're actually gonna do for this new scene, now this is all in the name of creating this new scene. It is a bit of a challenging process, almost some photoshopping going on in After Effects. But part of, I think, what will help with this is we'll just change we're gonna animate the handles of the gradient ramp because this looks a bit too dark compared to this scene. So I'm just gonna put a keyframe on the start of the ramp position and end of ramp position. We'll get those keyframes to come up down here by pressing U on our keyboard. And as we move ahead in time, I'm gonna get the start of the ramp to move over slightly. And then it's just gonna kind of seem like the light is kind of creeping in from the previous scene, but the wall up here is much brighter. Maybe there's a huge window up there and the light is just kind of creeping in from the corner. And I'll actually even get this guy to go out slightly. And then lastly, I think this just looks a bit too bright here. So I'm going to add another solid. And I'll just copy this gradient ramp over to this guy and then modify it. And we'll just duplicate those colors and make this one a bit darker. We're going to swap those colors. So now we're a bit darker in the corner here, which is kind of what I'm going for. And it's going to turn off the animation of these actually. And then we'll just add, so now we have this kind of completely covering up this guy, which we don't want. I'll just create a mask on this guy. Nice big circle that we're going to completely feather out. Zoom back in. We'll feather out this circle to maybe 200, maybe 300. Maybe 500. And then we'll just also take the expansion down to kind of minimize its effect here. And then we'll feather it out to maybe 700. Really, really gradual, just kind of darkening there. It just helps the whole thing to look a bit more natural. As opposed to this, it's just a bit too bright, I find. For whatever reason, I just like that better. And when we add the squares in here, these little X's, crosses, that's going to kind of help to distract from all the fakery going on here. Although the X's are going to be fake too. Good stuff. Okay, awesome. So now we have our fake background kind of, 50% complete. We're just going to add in the little crosses now and we'll be on our way. Okay, so to create the cross, we're going to create a new composition here. We'll call it maybe like plus sign. And we'll just double tap on our rectangle tool shape. It's going to create a rectangle, which is different than a solid color layer. This is actually a shape layer. And if we just double tap U, that'll bring up our size. And we'll just put the size down to 18 by 55. And we now need the other one going horizontally, so we'll just keep everything clean here and just duplicate the rectangle, open up its individual properties, and rotate it 90 degrees. Very nice. I'm just going to zoom in here. And I'm going to use my crop comp, or my region of interest tool there, and just drag it around my square. We'll keep it square as well. And I'm going to crop my composition to my region of interest. And now my whole composition is actually just very small. And you can see if I drag that plus sign comp into this comp, and I show the handles, it's just a nice little tiny composition there with our X. So we'll go back into there and we'll align our X to the center of our comp. Okay, and we're probably going to have to change the size of our composition slightly later on, and you'll see why. But for now, we're just going to take it step by step. And first thing we're going to do is change the color of our X of our plus sign to match this color here. So in order to figure out what this color is, I'm just going to create a new solid. Well, I'm not going to create a new solid. I'm just using the eyedropper to get the color code here. So I'm just going to copy that color code, jump back to my plus sign, and we'll paste that there. Very cool. And we do not need any stroke. Jump back. There's our little X. And we basically want that guy to be up here. But we need a lot more of them, as you can tell. So we're going to add an effect called motion tile and drag that onto this plus sign. And motion tile basically allows you to create a tiling patterned effect out of any layer. So we're just going to put the output width up to until it reaches the edge of our screen. Very cool. And we'll put the output height as well. Now, in a matter of seconds, we have a bunch of plus signs. Very cool, very efficient. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is parent this to the original video layer, so it will follow its motion as well. Now, one thing we have to do here is reposition this so it fills up this area here. We'll maybe just put it right about there. And now what I'm going to do to get rid of all these ones that we don't want, I'm going to duplicate this solid. I'm just going to call it mask. And I'm going to use it to mask out all those X's, but I'm going to take off all the feathering going on just to make sure. All right, now I'll just solo this so we can see what's going on. Now this mask, this layer is becoming a mask for our X's, and our X's are only being revealed by that layer. Okay, I'll turn the solo back off. Now as we come up, we have all the X's continuing. Still doesn't look quite right for a couple of reasons. The X or plus sign, whatever we're calling it, I keep going back and forth, but the X itself doesn't look quite right. You can see these ones are all kind of irregular in their shape. We're going to achieve that very quickly. But first what we'll do is we'll change the space between all of them. Doesn't quite match the space going on between everything down here. So to do that, we're basically going to have to change the size of our composition. So we'll go back into our plus sign comp, and we're just going to have to continually play around here. I'm going to lock this. I'm just going to put this up to maybe 230. All right, let's try 260. We'll move back. You can see these have updated. It's almost there. Let's try maybe, we're going to put this up to 240. We'll put that up to 240. That's looking pretty good. Now, you can see these X's are kind of changing in their color because of the lighting in this room. Kind of like a bit brighter here, a bit darker and more saturated looking there. So we'll actually add another gradient ramp to our X's, to our plus sign layer. And we'll just, we'll just move back in time here, and we'll grab the first color from this guy, second color from here, and we will position our gradient ramp handles accordingly. There we go. Very cool, very cool. It's definitely looking better. It's like slightly too much width going on. They're not totally matching up here, but we'll worry about that later. Okay, so next effect we're gonna add is turbulent displace. It's gonna be a really quick way of just making the plus signs look like they're naturally painted on the wall and have that irregular shape to all of them, and all of them will be different and unique to each other. So we'll add in turbulent displace. And as you can see, our X's are now all completely wonky. So we're just gonna have to modify the parameters here. Basically, we're gonna put the size way down to maybe 10, or maybe 5, and our amount to maybe 20 or 10. I will put this back up to 20, put this down to maybe 3, put this up to maybe 30, put this up to maybe 5. Cool. They're looking pretty similar now. Maybe put this to 35. 30. Let's do 30. Now if we go to the halfway point, we can kind of see here, they're looking a lot more similar. These are looking a bit thicker and a bit bigger here than these guys down here. So a way we can resolve that is basically go back into our plus sign, and we can just put the scale of it down, or maybe not the scale, but we'll just put the dimensions of the size down. We'll just go 1 point down, like 17 and 17. Okay, we'll go back a little bit smaller now. And just to further this a bit more, I think what might help is just putting a simple choker on these. And we'll just choke them in a bit. As you can see, the simple choker just kind of chokes it. So we'll reset that and bring it in just ever so slightly, maybe to 1.5. Very cool. Awesome. Now if we have all these plus signs that are looking pretty good, we'll play that back. I'll just put my workplace here and looking pretty good, pretty cool. So we're going to get rid of the X's in the middle. We're going to now make room for our title that we want to put in the new scene, or whatever you might want to put there. Okay, so to get rid of these X's, we're going to actually just put a mask on our mask layer. Here, I'll just actually delete this gradient ramp. Doesn't even need to be there. This solid layer is acting as the mask for the layer below it. And we're just actually going to add a mask to this layer. And we're just going to get rid of all these X's. And we're going to have to actually just set this to subtract. And you can see what's going on there. So now we have a hole taken out of our mask. Okay, so now we have a space for our title. We'll play that back. Very cool. Now the positioning of these X's is not ideal. So what I'm gonna do, we like the position of these ones, but we don't like the position when it gets up to here. So we're gonna kind of do a little, sleight of hand here in motion, and we're gonna fake the position of our plus signs. So let's see how to do that. So we like the position of them here, so we'll put a keyframe here for our tile center. And when we move ahead in time, we're gonna move our tile center down. Yeah, we're gonna move it down, and we're gonna have to change our mask shape here because it's no longer covering that up. Okay, let's try that, and we're gonna add some easing to that too. Okay, let's play that back. Now the X's are ending up in a good position. Now we'll just add like a title here. After Effects Transitions. And we'll just take off the stroke. Maybe put it to bold. We will also link it to our video layer. And we can watch this back. Pretty cool, right? So that's about it. There are some other things we can just tweak a little bit here. Usually when you're trying to add stuff into a real life scene and it's stuff you're adding in post, like text or these plus signs, usually you want to add just a little bit of blur to them. So I'll just add in some Gaussian blur to our text. Maybe just put it to 2. And if I just zoom in here and undo and redo that, you can kind of see just adds a tiny bit of blur and lets it blend in more. You don't really want extremely clean looking edges, and if you're trying to make it look like it's part of the actual scene. So, and we'll do that to the plus sign layers as well. Okay, and the last step is just covering up that light fixture. It's kind of, the fade of the layer above it is kind of overlapping a bit. So we're just gonna duplicate the video layer and paste that light back on top of the color. We'll just duplicate our video layer here. Move it above both of our solids. Again, these are these guys that are coming in. And so we now want our video layer back on top. Don't want the whole video layer. We're just gonna drag a mask around the light here. And I'm just gonna do kind of not the best job, but it'll get the point across of what we're trying to do here. Okay, awesome. And now we have it. If I turn this on and off, our light comes back on top. We could do the same thing with the books here, but they're not as noticeable with the, it's definitely covered up, but if you don't see that original video and all you're seeing is this, you might not really notice it. So we'll play that back. Oh, well, you can see the X is covering up the light here, so we'll just put this above our plus sign and mask layers. There we go. And that's actually kind of giving it away slightly because the X is actually moving behind it, which would not happen in real life. So that's something you might fix. But that's about it. That's about how you do it. I'd probably go back and tweak this slightly. I might even make that motion a bit slower. It is happening pretty quick. And I think the slower you can make it, the more real it's gonna look because it's not like you're trying to hide something by just making it happen really fast. It's pretty cool. Hopefully that describes it. It's definitely kind of a long process. Anytime that you're trying to add something into a scene and making it look like it's part of that scene, it's gonna take a lot of tweaking, whether that's tweaking the animation or just tweaking the visuals. But that's pretty much how you do it. And so that's about it. So thank you for watching, and hopefully you can take this and use it in your own productions. And yeah, see you in the next video.